Alright, so we're here checking out your hammer squish seed. It's a good start. There are a couple problems going on with it. So the first thing you might notice is that even before the ball has hit the ground or been hit by the hammer, it's already squished down. So ideally at the beginning here it should start out perfectly round, alright, because there's no impact or force going on here. And then at the point when it hits the bottom, hits the floor, that's really when it should start to squish. Also, as the hammer is coming down on it, that's when it should be squishing. Alright? And then another kind of big problem right here is it's traveling through the hammer as it's bouncing back up. Alright? So, of course, that's, not quite natural. And then it's just kind of slowly returning to that round shape. Okay, so let's kind of fix this up a little bit and get more of kind of the squash and stretch going in here in a more natural way. All right. So first thing we're going to start with is just making sure that the ball starts out being perfectly round. All right, no squishing happening yet. So just grab the ball. And we'll just take a look at what we have here. We've got our translate and our scale over here, okay? And we just want the ball to be perfectly round, so we'll just go with scale X, Y, and Z all as 1, alright? 1, 1, 1. And just go ahead and key those guys, alright? And, if you want to know how I did that, I was just clicking, dragging right here, and then I just right-click, come up to key selected, okay? So now it's nice and perfectly round, and that's good. Now you can see once we did that, it's actually still already kind of starting to squish before it has actually hit the ground. So that's bad. And we don't want it to actually start squishing until it impacts with the ground or the hammer catches up with it, so on, okay? So let's go ahead and make sure that we like the key where it is hitting the ground, alright, or that we're happy with that. Okay, so first thing here is it's kind of peeking through the bottom a little bit, alright, so just make sure you move it up so that it's just nicely sitting on that ground plane. And if you want the hammer to come down this far, then just make sure that you are squishing the ball so that it's not peeking through that hammer, okay? So, an easy way to do this would be to just move the pivot point here to the bottom of the ball and just scale it down, alright? So, just go ahead and go to your scale tool here, and if you hold down the D key and the V key at the same time, alright, so D is in dog, V is in victory, you can actually move this pivot point by clicking and dragging, and you can move it wherever you want. So in this case, we want to move it to the bottom of the ball here. All right. So once we have it there, now when we scale in this Y direction, it's all gonna just scale from the bottom rather than scaling from the middle. Okay. So we can just scale this down so that it's just kind of touching the hammer. Of course, anytime that we scale it down like that, we also want to scale it outwards, since the mass of the ball isn't disappearing. It needs to go somewhere, so it'll get wider all the way around, which you seem to have a good grasp of anyways, but just make sure you remember to do that. So we'll just go with, well, let's see, I don't know. That looks about right. So, about 1.35 here. And it's just kind of eyeballing. Make sure that they're both the same. The X and Z are the same number, okay? So we're happy with this pose. Make sure that once you have done that, you go ahead and key that as well, alright? Key all that good stuff. So, and don't forget, I translated as well, so we'll key that as well. So we're happy with this pose. We're happy with this pose. So let's see what happens in between. Again, you can kind of see it's already squishing before it's even touched anything, so that's a problem because that's just weird. So let's go ahead and fix that in the graph editor. All right. So we'll just come up to Window, Animation Editors, Graph Editor. This is a perfect job for the graph editor. So what's happening is it's scaling in the Y direction, all right, which is your kind of up and down. Your vertical is going to be your Y direction, all right. So we want to adjust that scale Y. So when we have our ball selected here, we can come to, we have all these kind of lines going on. It's a little crazy, so we can just select scale Y, and that'll show us just scale Y, so we can just work with that. Now right now it just kind of looks like one big crazy long flat line. If we want to be able to see things a little bit better, just go ahead and, if you're on a Mac, hold down Command Shift, right mouse button, click and drag, and you can just drag it in. Or if you are on a PC, it's going to be Control Shift, right mouse, click and drag. Alright? So let's just pull this in a little bit so that we can actually see what's going on here, which is, you can see it's not really a flat line, it's actually a lot of curve going on here. Okay? So basically, down at the bottom here, this is all indicative of time. So anything that's going in the horizontal direction is kind of time passing, alright? And the vertical over here is what your scale is at, how big your scale is at. You can see we've started out here at 1, okay, where it's perfectly round in the Y direction, and then like swooping down as time passes all the way to 0.5 something or other, right down here, about 0.55, and then it's at the end coming back up, but not quite to all the way around. Alright? And that's what is happening with it right now. So, anywhere that you see a curve like this, basically this kind of slow curving is indicative of a slow change here over time, okay? So it's saying, right now the ball is squishing kind of a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's squishing a whole bunch, and then it's only squishing a little, and then it's kind of coming back and inflating just a little bit, and then a whole bunch, and then just a little bit right here. It just kind of eases into that. Okay? So, obviously we don't want all this crazy shenanigans going on where it's just kind of like, no, I'll squish a little, and then I'll do a bunch, and then not so much, and I don't know what's going on. So, like I said before, we want to make sure that it just stays completely round until it hits that floor and gets squished by that hammer, okay? It needs to stay totally round. So we don't want any curving going on at all here. We just want it to be perfectly round, perfectly round, perfectly round, perfectly round, and then suddenly be like a squish. So an easy way to do this would be to grab these two keys here, okay, in your scale Y. So this key and this key, and do what is called stepped mode, alright? Because right now it's on auto tangent, which gives you all these nice crazy curves, and we want stepped mode. And it's actually this little button up here that looks like little steps, ironically, stairs, okay? So just go ahead and grab those two and click on step tangents here. And in that case, it decided it wanted to do that to everything, but we can change that later, so sometimes it's a little funny like that, where it just likes to go crazy. Alright, so let's see what we've got now. So, here we go. Now in the Y direction, it's staying round, it's staying round, it's staying round, and then all of a sudden it's like squish, right? Only problem is that the hammer is actually catching up with it, so it should be kind of reacting to that hammer before it gets to the bottom, right? So when you have that hammer connecting, which is right about frame 5, okay, just make sure that you are adjusting that Alright, and adjusting kind of the speed that the ball is going, because right there it's going to speed up just a little bit, and it's going to go along with that hammer, alright? So we'll just kind of set that guy right there. Let's key those guys. Now, what you may notice is happening is that even though the ball isn't squishing in the Y direction, it's kind of still growing larger in the X and Z directions, because we didn't really adjust those. Okay, so it still kind of almost looks like it is squishing, you know? Just before we get quite to that, let's make sure we're still addressing this kind of hammer catching up with the ball sort of thing, and just move this down a little again, right about here. Key that stuff, alright? So that the ball is not going through the hammer, alright? So let's go ahead and adjust the X and Z directions now, since we have the Y direction in order, okay? Let's go X. Here's what's happening with X. And you know, when I did that, I added a few extra keys, which, you know, I probably shouldn't have done. It's just as easy as grabbing them and just deleting them with Control X or Command X, depending on what kind of computer you're using, alright? We just got rid of those guys. You generally only want to key whatever things you are moving at the moment, so, you know, you don't want to just grab them all and key them all at once, so you might end up with a lot of extra keys that you don't really need in crazy places, okay? So, alright, so let's see what exactly we're working with here. We've got that kind of squish happening before we get down to the bottom. We don't really want that. We just kind of want it to all squish at once. So, you know, this is pretty much the same thing as the Y, okay? So we'll just grab that guy, put our little stepped button there. So it's just going to squish all of a sudden. Make sure you do this in Z as well. Get rid of these extra guys. Just grab that, put it in stepped mode, and let's see what we have now. So we've got hammer catching up, and a squish all of a sudden at the end there. Alright? Squishing down. Now, it gets to, let's see, right about there. Seems like it's already squishing a bit in that Y direction. Okay, so we've got 0.558. Alright, so right here is where that change is happening, where we were at 0.66 right here. And then right here we're at 0.558. So let's check out what's going on there. Scale Y. So it looks like what happened was when I added those extra keys, I kind of goofed up what I had already worked on. So silly me. Yeah, that's another reason to just be careful when you're adding keys that you don't do anything crazy, alright? So, squish all of a sudden. Now, you know, obviously, as the hammer catches up here, to make sure that we're squishing that ball, alright? Because already it's pretty much hit the ground at this point at 8, okay? So let's go ahead and make ourselves a key right here on our scale Y, okay? We'll just key that. And our scale X and Z as well. Just key all those guys, because this is where that squish is going to start happening, alright? And, you know, the reason it's happening so early again is just because the hammer is pushing it down at an accelerated rate. Okay, So what we have now is this kind of nice curve sort of thing going on. So we've got it coming down, hammer is making it go a little faster, and then squish, just like that. Beautiful. Alright, so that's what you want kind of for the beginning. Just a hammer coming down and squishing it. And then of course, the rest here, is still a problem because we've got this ball that's kind of going through the hammer at that point. I would suggest, rather than making the ball go slower, I would say, maybe just bring up the hammer a little faster, okay? So, we've got the hammer right here, and eventually it gets to about there. But I would say, probably bring it up a little faster. So let's check that out in the graph editor. That's going to be a rotation value. As we're rotating the hammer, it's going to be the Z direction, which is this blue right here. Okay, so we can check out our rotate Z. Again, just use Command Shift right click or Control Shift right click to adjust this so that we can see a little better what's going on with the curves here. So here we go, get the hammer going down, hammer kind of hits the bottom of where it's going to go, and then it just kind of comes back up again. So what we can do is just add in a key at maybe about here, where this hammer has gone up significantly, alright? Quite a bit in a very short amount of time, alright? And we'll just go ahead and key that guy. Key selected. So we'll check out our key here. Looks like it's gone maybe a little too high, because it's higher than its final resting place, so we can always just adjust this by grabbing this and moving it, something like that, alright? So alright, let's try this again. Squish. Kind of moving out of the way. You can see the ball is still kind of going through it at the beginning there, so it's probably still not quite fast enough. So to make it a little faster, we can actually grab this key here. We can move it forward in time so that is happening faster. Alright? So it was at frame 17, now it's at frame 14. Just 2 frames after that squash is happening, okay? So squash, lift it up, just ease it in to that final position there. So now we don't have any more of the ball going through the hammer, okay? Now, kind of the last problem here is, we've got the squash going on, but not really any stretch. It's just kind of slowly becoming unsquashed as it is flying through the air, just, really super slow. Okay? First things first, it's still a little squashed at the end of its travels here, and we kind of want everything to be back to normal at that point. So let's just come to the end and just return everything to a scale of 1. Alright, so it's perfectly round again at the end. And we'll just key those, okay? So here it goes, slowly unsquashing until it's back to normal. So obviously we want it to kind of, once it's squashed, it should kind of spring into a stretch right about here, alright? And then it'll kind of slowly come back to its original shape. The stretch just kind of indicates a lot of speed coming out of that bounce, okay? It just kind of evens out that squash that we have, alright? So we'll come to about here, and we'll just go ahead and start doing our stretch. So, we can make this maybe 1.5 in the Y direction. Might be a little too much, but I guess we'll see. And we'll just make these maybe 0.75 for X and Z. Alright, so it's stretching out. We'll just go ahead and key those. Okay, so we've got squash, stretch, and then normal shape. Now, of course, right here it's kind of popping, sort of like squashed right there, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, crazy stretch. So we want to make sure that that's not happening, of course. So let's take a look at our scales again, see what we've got cooking. Alright. So here is scale Y. So what's happening right here is it's kind of popping because we still have it in that stepped mode. So just make sure you grab this key right here and put it into spline. Or, excuse me, I guess it'll be this guy. Put that guy in the spline. There we go. So that we have something a little bit more smooth going on. Alright. Squash, stretch, and then just like that, back to normal. Let's also check our scale X and scale Z and make sure everything's flowing smoothly, and it is. It's nice and curvy, so that's all good. The last problem with the animation is that even though our ball is traveling in a kind of diagonal direction, it's stretching in a vertical fashion. So, you know, if it's going to be traveling in that direction, we also want it to start stretching out in that direction. Alright? So, let's go ahead and just rotate that. Alright? Or not. Okay, so we have our rotations apparently locked and hidden right now. So we just want to bring those back, okay? So if we want to unlock those guys, we need to come up to Window, General Editors, and it's going to be Channel Control, okay? It's, you know, doesn't look like the prettiest box, but this is kind of where everything lives. So we can see, you know, what's under Keyable right here. And there's this little tab called Locked, and this is where all your locked stuff lives. You can also see your keyable hidden, so these are all the hidden things as well. So let's just go ahead and grab our rotates. They're right down here, rotate X, Y, and Z. Just grab all of those. And we're just going to hit this little move button. It's going to move them to the left over to this keyable box. Boop, just like that. And now you can see they've reappeared here. Just go ahead and close that. Grab these three. And we're just going to right click and choose Unlock Selected. They're no longer locked, and now we can play with them again. So let's just go ahead and right here, just rotate that in the direction that the ball is traveling. Alright. We'll just key that guy. Let's see. Okay, so because I haven't keyed it at 0 at the beginning, I'll still need to do that. Just go to 0 at the beginning there, key that. We've got 0, and you can see it's already starting to turn a little bit early. So we just want to make sure that at that second when it hits the bottom here, it is also keyed at 0. So the rotation does not start until after it has hit the ground, okay? Just key that. So there we go, squishing down. As it's going the other direction, it's starting to stretch out, starting to rotate, and then eventually it just comes back to this just nice normal ball shape when it reaches the peak of its journey here, okay? So once you've got all that going on, you'll be looking good. Your animation will be a lot smoother, and life will be good. So, let me know if you have any questions about this. And other than that, well, happy animating.